Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another stream on the Men Like Us podcast, Facebook and YouTube channel. Today is I guess, the first installment of a new series I want to do. It's called Way Too Late. Oh, sorry, a second. Yeah, Way Too Late movie reviews. This is where me and a friend review movies that are old, and it's just way too late to be reviewing these movies. So I'm going to bring on my guest for today. It is Imara Jones. Welcome to the Men Like Us channel.
Hey, Men Like Us channel.
And everybody, y'all already know I'm a huge Star Trek fan. We've already had a Star Trek talk on this channel. And Imara was one of the first people I really rocked with super hardcore on Star Trek talk. Like, we talked for the better part of a day on Facebook Messenger, just going back and forth about Star Trek.
Correct.
And it's just one of those great topics that once you find somebody that really knows about it,
you nerd out.
It's going forever. And and actually Imara was putting me on to a whole lot of shit because I guess I was watching it and I didn't go beneath the surface on a lot of stuff. So I wasn't noticing a lot of parallels and really digging deep on some of the meanings of some of the character arcs and all that stuff. So
because you were watching it like a man, let's just be honest.
Pretty much. And I did not really mature the lens that I watched it through because I've been watching this stuff since I was a child. Mm-hmm. And now these are my childhood characters that I'm watching interact. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't really think about it like that. But what's on the docket for today? Let me share my screen here. Nope. I'm sorry. Well, anywho, today we are reviewing Star Trek First Contact. This is a movie that it came out in 1996. It is with the Next Generation cast. That is with, I don't know why I'm forgetting this dude's name.
Jean-Luc Picard?
No, the actor's name.
Patrick Stewart.
Yes, I'm sorry. Professor X himself, Patrick Stewart, Jean-Luc Picard. And this Next Generation crew was pretty dope. They added a whole lot to the lore of Star Trek, and it was definitely the bomb. So one of the first things, and I'm sorry, really quickly, I'll explain the movie very shortly. For some of the people that haven't seen it, this is a movie that surrounds the topic of how, in the Star Trek universe, how they first came into contact with aliens. And it tells that story while also telling a whole lot of other things happening behind the scenes, a lot of time travel, a lot of really good character building and good stuff. So one of the things that I really liked in the movie, this movie made me laugh. I was laughing in the theater when I saw it. Was there were a lot of hilarious interactions between characters, and towards the beginning of the movie when the Borg first attacked, there was an interaction. As soon as Worf came on the ship, there were two really hilarious interactions. So first one was Worf had the Defiant, tinier ship, and Riker's just like, tough little ship, and the Worf was just like, little. And that just had me rolling because, if y'all don't know the characters, Worf is like the consummate badass in this whole universe. He's that dude. So, he's the big, tough, courageous dude. And, he hit him with the little ship. And then he got to his post. He was like, hey, you remember how to fire phasers, right? And the dude just stared daggers at this man. And he just kind of laughed and slinked away. And I think some of this stuff was happening because Jonathan Frakes, the actor that plays Riker, directed the movie. And, I think he really made sure his character got a lot of funny moments in. But were there any other funny interactions to you? Anything that kind of made you smile?
Yeah, well, first I think we have to tell people who may not remember what the plot is, don't you think?
Okay.
I have to tell them that First Contact is about centers on the penultimate battle, right, between the Federation and the Borg, this cybernetic species that is obsessed with assimilating humanity. And they first were put into contact through a whole host of reasons with the captain of the Enterprise, right? Jean-Luc Picard. That's how they first learned. That's how the Borg and them. Remember, it was Q that put them into contact, right? So the Borg only became known to humanity because of that initial interaction, and so the whole movie centers on this personal payback story that Jean-Luc Picard goes on to pay back, because after that first encounter with the Borg, he was actually assimilated by the Borg and had his arms taken off, and they like gave him an implant in his eyes or whatever. And so, and they used his knowledge to almost destroy the Federation and to almost destroy his ship and his crew. And so imagine he was trapped inside the cybernetic head. People must be thinking we're crazy if they've never seen that. He was trapped in his cybernetic like head, and then was fighting to get out, and ultimately in that first was ever able to signal through his cybernetic brain to the Federation the way that they could destroy the Borg ship. And then that gave the Federation a reprieve, but they spent years and years and years trying to figure out how to assimilate humanity. And there's this penultimate battle just outside of Earth where Picard and the Enterprise are called back into to fight. And that's centers on the story of how Picard ultimately defeats them in this it involves like time travel, so they end up going back in time and a whole host of other things.
They went back in time to 2063.
Yeah, so like 200 years, 250 years or something. So in any event, that's what the story centers about, like this personal and this humanistic journey to deal with this cybernetic life form and this battle. It's like the penultimate battle, and the Borg are really hard to deal with because they don't care about money. They don't care about people. They just want to assimilate life forms. And so there's no way to compromise with them, and there's no way to bargain. There's no way to whatever. You just have to like kind of stand your ground, right? One of the lines from the movie. So in any event, I thought one of the funny moments for me in that is when kind of the subplot is that the way that the Borg ultimately decided they're going to destroy humanity is to go back at the time of like first contact, where humans learn how to travel at warp speed and encounter another species for the first time, which takes humanity on a totally different course. They're going to disrupt that and instead assimilate humanity, right? That's like the thing that they're going to do.
And pull the Skynet.
And right. And so, because they were calling for reinforcements essentially. So what the subplot is that the Enterprise crew, when they go back in time to not only stop the Borg, they have to make sure that first contact happens so that the timeline is integral, and to make sure that that first contact happens so that the course of humanity, which ultimately culminates in the Federation of Planets, happens. So they're trying to make sure that that launch happens. So when Dr. Beverly goes down with Picard to try to make sure that the ship for first contact is still intact, and then to make contact with Dr. Cochrane, who is the first is the person who builds the first warp capable ship to make first contact, is alive. They want to make sure of those two things. Well, they end up getting in a struggle with some humans surrounding the ship, and there's a radiation leak, and Alfre Woodard, who's a friend of Ephraim Cochrane and helps him gather all the materials to make the ship, she's wounded in that, remember? And she gets like radiation sickness. And then like Dr. Beverly is down there and Alfre Woodard is passed out, and Jean-Luc starts to lecture Beverly on the prime directive, right? It's the primary rule of the Federation, which is that you don't expose species that haven't been capable of warp to all this new technology, or even species that are warp capable. You don't provide them or give them access to Federation technology, because they know that the impact that will have. And so he starts to lecture her on her, and then she just cuts him off, and she goes, "I know the prime directive. I will keep her unconscious." And just like it's like, fucking transport me to the ship, bitch. Shut up. Like I know my job. I am a commander, and I have commanded this. She commanded the ship before. It's just like, I know what I'm doing. Shut up. Don't lecture me. That was one of my moments, because we always in the series, he's always getting away with lecturing people, and it was kind of funny. Yeah, and it was kind of funny when you had someone just be like, "Bitch, shut up!" Like I know what to do. I know how to do my job. So I really I like that moment. The moment when another moment when they're down on the planet trying to assess Zephyr Cochrane. Remember, Deanna Troi and Commander Riker are down there, and Deanna had to get drunk with Ephraim Cochrane.
Yes.
Do you remember? And so
Absolutely.
she's totally blotto, like totally blotto, totally drunk. And again, like she on the series is always like, you know, totally put together,
Very professional.
so professional,
Yes.
so like never cracking her face, right? She never cracks. And so in this, she's totally drunk. And again, Will starts lecturing her and she says, you know, this is no time to be lecturing me about time. We don't have the time. And she like passes out from doing tequila shots and stuff. So there's all these the funny moments are when the characters get to break with their normal like archetypes and step out of that and say and like really show kind of their internal life and what's going on. So I think those are some more of the funny moments that are that you know stick out for me. There's some other ones like there's some other ones as well. Like I think when they get ready to go out and they're getting ready to go out in their spacesuits.
Oh yeah,
right? When they're gonna do a spacewalk on the Enterprise, which is one of the coolest scenes in Star Trek ever. Like they're walking on the ship and the ship is upside down and all of that. And I think that there was a crack of whether or not, you know, about space training and like anti-gravity training. Yeah, they're.
Well, and that led to, in my mind, the best line of the movie.
What's that?
Which is from Worf. Assimilate this. Pow. Sorry, I'm a huge Worf fan. So
I mean, like, okay, like you know, like to be honest, it's not. I mean, Worf is
cheesy line.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, like, in so many ways, like Worf is like Black masculinity in science fiction, right? So, like, it's not, and a lot of like Black men are like that's Worf is their guy, which totally makes it's you know it tracks that's who you would like be attracted to or not attracted to, but I mean model yourself after.
Yeah.
Or like be drawn to as a way into the Star Trek universe.
Well, you know, but here's the thing with him and people who have heard me speak on the Lioness her podcast talking about my past and my upbringing, you know, the thing that I really identified with him over was the fact that he was of these people, but he wasn't really of these people. And he had to learn how to be around his own people.
That's right.
And that's something I had to learn in my life. I was Mr. Assimilation Man. You know, I really had to learn to embrace my Blackness and really learn how to navigate that, navigate our community. And, you know, that's just one other side of him that I really like. I was like, okay, I see you, Worf. All right. Like, we're going to get you right.
Right, because he is a Klingon, right, which is this warrior race, and Klingons are sexy, like they just are. But like, I don't know if you think Klingon women are sexy, but like Klingon like men are sexy, and so the whole thing is that he was raised. He has this warrior race. He was raised in this warrior class, and he's of this warrior race, but he was raised by like white Russians.
In Russia, right.
On Earth. It's like a totally different note. So one of my best lines, I think the whole interaction between, I mean, there are a couple of great lines for me. Like, you know, when Worf says assimilate this before blowing up, that's a really great line. I love the entire interaction. Also when like, well, there's so many good, another one is when the whole interaction between Alfred Woodard and Picard, when it looks like the only way that they can deal with like the Borg is to blow up the Enterprise, because the Borg, for everyone who needs to watch the movie, they end up trying to take over the Enterprise because it's the only way that they can get word to their species, come to Earth right now and we can take it over. And so when she yells at him, you know, it's his therapist breakthrough moment, and when she just yells at him, blow up the damn ship, Jean-Luc. You know, like she's trying to reason with him, and then he loses it, right?
Absolutely.
And after he loses it, he realizes, oh my God, like my personal trauma around being assimilated by these people is preventing me from being an effective warrior in this moment, right? And it's when she gets him to snap that he's able to get logical again. Another moment that I like, one of the best lines is with Picard, right? Was when, and I just felt this so much, like when the people, he's getting reports from the ship about how the Borg are taking it over.
Oh no, yeah.
You remember that? And so like, and it's like old school because the communications are down. They're literally, it's like 19th century. Like they have runners on the ship that like run to a certain part of the ship and say, this is what's going on there. And they have to run back to the bridge and they're going back and forth. And like one guy was like, okay, well, we need to retreat. We can't hold this section of the ship. And Jean-Luc just like gets whatever. And he's just like, you stand your grounds, right? If you have to fight them hand to hand, you stand your ground. And then that's when everyone else is like, yo, he's losing it. And then that provokes another line that sets up another line in the movie, the whole exchange with him and Worf.
Oh man.
Right. And Worf goes to him and is like, look, bitch, first of all, we need to retreat. We need to retreat from that part of the ship. And then we do need to blow it up. Like we've got to blow up the ship. Like it's the only move that's left on the chessboard, right?
Yes.
And so like, and then Jean-Luc says, you're just saying that because you're a coward. Right. And he's like, you're a coward. And you get off my bridge, right? Tells him that he's a coward and get off his bridge. And Worf was about to lose it. And then one of the other good lines for me is when he says, Worf responds, if you were any other man, I would kill you where you stand.
Absolutely.
And that is like a really fierce line.
Now, see, that whole interaction was different for me the last couple times I watched this movie.
Why is that?
Because I didn't have the context of Deep Space Nine. So, mind you, this is happening just after Deep Space Nine, where he killed the leader of the Klingon Empire. Like, he straight up X'd that dude out. So, I mean, like, it isn't. At first, it felt like an idle threat, like, you know, if you were any other man, I'd kill you where you stand. It's like, oh, yeah, the Klingons do their thing. No, Worf is really about that shit. And if you do Deep Space Nine, you will know it. No,
Worf is about that life. Even in the show, do you remember when, like, this is one of the most, like, best.
Oh, when he killed Duras?
Yes. When he killed Duras, because Duras killed his ex-wife.
Yes.
Right? And Worf was like, whatever, and it was against the rules, and he was like, fuck that shit, and he went and hunted that man down and killed him. You know, like Worf is literally the definition of about that life.
For sure.
Like he is not one of those talkers. Like he is about it. He doesn't have any problem taking off the ceremonial shit and like taking a blade. No, he'll kill you. However you want to fight, Worf will fight. You want to use ship to ship, we'll use ship to ship. You want to use phaser to phaser, we can use phaser to phaser. You want to fight hand to hand, we'll fight hand to hand. If you want to fight bat'leth to bat'leth, which is like this double-bladed sword, we can do that. Like however you want to catch this smoke, like I got it for you. Like he's literally about that life and never is afraid to back down. And so in that moment, right, when he looks at him and says, if you were any other man, and he means like any other man, like in the universe, right? He's like any other man, like I am about this life. I got this smoke. But any other man, I would not only did he say that I would kill you, right? He said, I would kill you where you stand.
Right.
Right. Like I will kill you right where you are standing right this motherfucking moment. I thought that was like a really powerful moment. And it reveals so much about how Jean-Luc is able to lead, because he leads through reverence, right?
Yes.
Like
yes,
people have different things that make people follow them, but what makes people follow Jean-Luc is that the people that are a part of his crew revere him. You know, he's a revered figure, and we learn that about him, like even at his weakest moment, right? Even when he is a piece of shit, right? The reverence is there, and that is what people like are able to hold on to in order to like follow him. And he shows why you should revere him, because he gets to the point where he's like, let me get my head, get my head out of the ass.
Yep.
Let me go back out here and let's beat these motherfuckers. And I got to blow up this ship. I got to do all this stuff, but I'm going to go do it. And I think that's what they like about him, is that he's always willing to make the hard choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's always willing to live with the hard choice.
For sure. Now, but what we got to talk about after this interaction.
What's that?
What the thing is that apology. That apology, he said all this stuff to Worf, and then he came back and he said, I regret some of the things that I said. And Worf was like, some
of the things?
Some? The fuck are you talking about? He's like, you're the bravest man I've ever. He didn't backtrack and say, oh, you know what, you're right, all of them. No, he just stuck with it. And I'm just like, what in the privilege is happening here, where he just get away with just some? I don't know.
He is the descendants. I don't know. He is the descendant.
That didn't sit right with me.
But he is the descendants of French aristocrats, so you were going to get some of that. But yeah. I think that like you were going to get some of that privilege, right? But I do think that like when he said to him, and he was like, in fact, because he said, you are a coward, right? Get off my bridge. And that's the greatest insult. And I do, yeah. And I do think that him saying, not only are you brave, but you're the bravest person I know, like that is actually a full apology. That is the exact opposite of calling you a coward. It kind of is.
Well, to kind of backtrack a little bit, we were talking about Picard's interaction with Kit Lily. And, one thing that I really kind of enjoyed in this movie was seeing him lose control. He lost control in the holodeck. Like he took out that Tommy gun, started spraying up the scene. And then he ran up, was ready to hit it. And she just stopped him like, yo, come back to humanity, dude. Cut off the caveman shit. And that was that. I mean, that scene was dope. But then also when she was, calling him Captain Ahab, telling him to blow up the damn ship, and then he loses control and breaks the glass, and he just like, they will pay for what they have done. The line is drawn here, no further. That's not the Picard that we spent 7 seasons watching. That's not the man that we spent 7 seasons watching. In fact, the episode or the season after was not the season. A couple episodes after the whole Borg thing, where he went home to Paris, he was crying. He wasn't on this like, nah, fuck that. They gonna get it because of what they did. He wasn't on payback, and it's just like you said, a lot of the things that are rewarding about this movie is when characters break from who they really are, and Data did that a little bit as well. One of the funnier moments in the movie is where she blows on the skin. And she was like, "Was that good for you?" And he's like, "Ooh." And the fans just love it. I mean, it's silly, it's stupid. This robot automaton that never feels emotion, feeling pleasure.
Arousal.
Yes, and that was one of the things the director Jonathan Frakes, who plays the second in command Riker, he did give that up. That they couldn't actually get it in the movie, but they did bone.
They got that's nasty.
Data and the Queen Borg.
So the Queen of the Borg, and if you all see, she looks like a technological Medusa, and it's nasty. And I don't want to think about anybody but her. I don't want to think about her capable of, like there's some people who you don't even want to imagine. Like yeah. So that's it. She's one of those. So
fair enough. Well, look, I love the actress that played her.
So they did. I didn't ever think that Data had.
Well, he did with Tasha Yar in season 1. They had sex. It was some little goofy virus going around that made everybody act weird. And
I kind of blocked that out.
Okay, season 1.
I kind of blocked that out because again, I don't know if I want to think about an android penis.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, what? How did you like? I don't know. How did you feel about the like whole fish out of water narrative with Lily? Like, you think it
Um,
was? Did it really add to the movie? Did it? Was it just like meh? Or
so Lily is Alfred Woodard's character, who is like the
Mhm.
friend of Ephraim Cochrane, who ends up on the Enterprise, and is totally a fish out of water. She's in a post-apocalyptic Earth, and she ends up then on this like technological wonderland that is the Star Trek Enterprise, and that does look like the future, right? And a
Mhm.
part of her journey is one, seeing that massive things are possible, um, with like, you know, seeing that things are possible with um, technology. And then after that, realizing that people are the same and that she understands who people are
Mhm.
more than the people on the Enterprise because they're so used to technology and order that they don't understand like the rawness of humanity and how to confront that, which she does, right?
Mhm.
Because remember, she everyone was like, so when John Luke makes that order, stand your ground, fight hand to hand if you have to. Worf, get off my bridge. Everyone, and then like Lily, Picard storms away, and then Lily's left with the rest of the crew, and she's like, "So aren't y'all going to do something?" And then, the doctor, who's like, "Well, the captain gave us an order, and we just have to do it," and like, get to, getting the phasers ready and stuff. And Lily was like, "This is fucking crazy." Like she was the only one to be like, "Y'all are crazy. This is crazy." And had the courage, and because she wasn't a part of crew, the
Yes.
ability to confront him.
Mhm.
So I actually really I mean, I personally love Alfred Woodard as an actress. Like,
Mhm.
I
Shout out
can't,
to Luke Cage, season 1 and 2.
I mean, just in her season two Luke Cage performance, I think was like one of the best performances I've ever seen of the complexity of Black womanhood,
Mhm.
and the contradictory feelings that we have about relationship to Black communities and um, Black men, children. Like she really unpacks all of that. It's incredible. So I just love her anyway. And I think that she's an
Mhm.
amazing actress. And she took a role that could have just been like just a standard kind of Black woman, for lack of a better word, Black woman savage role. Like,
Yeah.
and she transformed it just because she's just that bitch.
Mhm.
She transformed it into like um, this really pivotal, essential character in the movie. Like
Mhm.
the movie turns on her,
Yeah.
right? They're able to beat the Borg because they find she is the one that gets his mind right.
Yep.
And I think that that's just the power of her thing. There's some parts where I didn't like, but it was just the writing, what she's gonna do. But like, when they had her like, when she first comes in contact with him, and she has the phaser, and it is kind of one note where she's like slow, like, and
Yeah.
try that's one note, but
Mhm.
the more they go on their journey together, that ends up in that confrontation.
Mhm.
She's an essential character in that.
Absolutely.
And she actually, if you think about it, right, like she's the audience in the movie,
Mhm.
right? She is us, the way that we would react, being wowed by this technology, being wowed by all these gadgetries, being totally overwhelmed by the Borg, who she was like, they sound Swedish. Like,
Yeah.
like that's also a funny line when
Yes.
like she's like, who's that? And like, Jean-Luc's tearing out the components to examine them after he shot them with that Tommy gun. And she's like, who are they? And he's like, the Borg. And then she's like, sounds Swedish, So but I think that like she's us in the movie. And I mean, I just love Alfred Woodard. That character in the hands of anybody else would have been a disaster. Only her.
I don't think it would have been as good. And that scene with John Luke wouldn't have been as great. That scene was everything.
It was everything. It's the turning point it's when the movie turns, and it's when
Yeah,
he turns, right? And
sure.
when she's like, and she, they have essentially this conversation, because a lot of I mean, Star Trek is so deep, but a lot of the scenes and like the dynamics are informed by literature, right? There's a ton of Shakespeare dynamics in, and so this one was informed by Moby Dick, right? And this beast that had done this captain, that had injured this captain, he then becomes obsessed with killing this beast, this whale, and it ends up consuming and actually destroying him. This idea of vindicating his trauma through this act of mass revenge. And that's what that conversation that they have is about. And it's really powerful. And it's actually interesting for us to have that note right now, this idea of like the way we try to vindicate our trauma instead of letting it go,
Yep, that person's gonna pay. He has to pay. She has to pay. I'm putting something on social media to make them pay.
That's right.
Whatever. And it's just like, you're better off just not doing that shit at all. And nobody's really looking at you like you're winning because you're putting your business in the streets.
Right. Right.
Real talk.
Right.
But one thing I really enjoyed about this movie as well were the cameos. I guess specifically because I like Voyager. I hate Voyager. But we had look, the Doctor showing up, awesome, love him. I love the Doctor.
Yeah.
No, the Doctor from Voyager, the holographic.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yes,
that's right.
The holographic. And Beverly was like, I swear I never use one of these. And then turns them on and just like, I don't know, distract him. He's like, I'm a doctor, not a, he does the classic McCoy line, which
that was a funny moment when the Borg comes through and he looks at them because their skin is all fucked up from the implants, and he's like, "Do you guys need an analgesic cream? Is that why you're here? Do you need some cream on your face?"
But another one that kind of snuck by me, and I didn't realize until my last watch through actually was this guy. He played the host at the restaurant. That was Neelix.
That's Neelix.
Had no idea. No idea Neelix was in the show.
That's Neelix.
In the movie. Yeah. So that guy plays another alien character. And that's something that I have noticed about Star Trek so much. And I don't know why they didn't think people wouldn't notice. They recycle the fuck out of actors.
Well, I think it's a couple of things. So I think it's a couple of things.
Okay.
First of all, you also forgot to mention the cameo of Catherine Janeway, of Admiral Janeway. Remember? Yeah, she comes up and, or was it? No, wasn't it she the one that basically was like telling them about the Borg and that he had to stand down?
No, that was Admiral Hayes. And,
it was?
No. So
I thought she was in this one.
I think she was in the Picard show.
No.
This movie came out when Voyager was just beginning. So this came out in 96. So Voyager was just starting during this time, and that's how they got the EMH and Robert Picardo in his awesome cameo. But okay.
No, I'm obsessed because it may not be in this one, but now. But go ahead. You're gonna make a point.
No.
Recycle movies. I was gonna say why they recycle movies.
They recycle actors the guy who played Zephyr Cochrane.
All right, I knew that. I'm not crazy. It's in Star Trek Nemesis where she comes in.
There we go.
And she gives them orders from Star Trek. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So
Zephyr Cochrane.
Here's why they recycle. Well, he also was, he was also like in he was also in Deep Space Nine. I don't know if you remember the one where the Karma and like the ship is sinking into a gravity planet.
Yeah, he was the one that got swindled by Quark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think that they recycle, and then they recycle people different. So what's his name? Tuvok was in Next Generation. Yep. And then, in a cameo or like one episode. Mm-hmm. I think that the reason why they do it is it'll be my own personal thing is that there's a certain way that people in Star Trek like to work. Mm. And there's a certain rigidity to the Star Trek universe and apparently a super rigidity to direction and to the scripts. You cannot deviate. It has to be almost exact. And so I think that they like actors that they know that can execute the way that Star Trek is.
Mm-hmm.
And when you find someone who can do that, and so I think like for Tuvok, right? Tim Russ was in The Next Generation. He probably did a good enough job. And so when they're looking for Tuvok, they're like, who do we know that can do this role and be in our, like, essentially their clique, the way that they work. And it's probably not all actors, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
With Tom Paris, he was a human in a previous.
Yeah,
like, he was another human in Starfleet, and then they just put him on this. But it was funny that the story from the human that he played kind of has a lot of similarities.
That's exactly right.
It's like, okay, but I am noticing like a lot of different. Even the guy who plays Odo is used, and Quark was a random Ferengi on The Next Generation. Yeah. And even Dukat was a random Cardassian on The Next Generation.
Yep.
And boom, now they're, I'm just like, huh, okay. And not even just that, just a lot of like guests, like what's her name? Ensign Rowe. You remember that episode where Latana Troy, and she was the daughter of that guy, and it was just like, okay, nobody noticed they're the exact same person on the Enterprise. We just gonna let that go. All right. Well,
but then the actress that played Ensign Rowe, let's look up her name. Ironically, she did go on to play the Admiral in the Battlestar Galactica reimagination, which was created and produced by Ronald Moore after he finished Star Trek: Deep Space Nine.
Huh. I don't remember her from Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, she plays Admiral Kane.
Oh, snaps. Yeah, she was the new chick. You know what? Okay, you're right. And she totally fit that role. She played that role really well.
But it's this idea again that like there's a certain way that that people attached to Star Trek like to work. You know, her name is Michelle Forbes. Liked to Michelle Forbes is her name. Like to work.
Yes.
And they know that all actors can't work the way they want them to work. And so when they find like this pool of actors, they just kind of keep them around and draw on them. Because even after Ronald Moore moved on from Deep Space Nine and created Battlestar Galactica, when he's like, I need a person for Admiral Kane, he went to someone who worked with him. And I think that that's just how they work in that world.
And you know, the same, it even extended to Stargate, SG-1 and Atlantis, because what's it? The leader of the Lucian Alliance was the first engineer that got killed in the movie. You know, the guy that crawls up there and says, "Hey, anybody working up here?" That's the leader of the Lucian Alliance. And I'm like, what's that guy doing there? It's 90s sci-fi, 90s, early 2000s sci-fi. It's all the same group of people, and it's really interesting. But it does result in a lot of really good roles. Yeah, because they're just so good. But one more thing I wanted to cover before we we're done with this review was how this show plays into Picard, the series. This movie this movie really showcased Picard and Data's relationship a little bit more, you know, and Data, you know, he's this robot that is trying to learn how to be more human. And Picard is kind of, you know, one of his teachers in that. And they have a great relationship together all the way through The Next Generation. And, you know, earlier in this movie, they had a moment. And, you know, this was this moment where he was touching the ship. And he was like, yeah, to feel something makes it feel real. Yeah. And it's just like, it doesn't feel any more real to me. But it was just one of those, I'm like, he's trying to teach him that. And then, you know, obviously towards the end of the movie, Data's the one that he goes back to save. And it's just like, I'm seeing this and I'm like, wow, Data really was that important to him. Because if you know the Picard show, he risked a lot just off of his love for Data. And it was just like, wow, like I'm just rewatching things. I'm seeing it. And I'm seeing the love develop and how special their relationship was. And it was just like, okay, yeah, it's all definitely falls in line. You know, Data was he was there to help him out. Or I'm sorry, Data was there to protect him pretty much from getting reassimilated when he got cornered. But then, he was the one he went back for. And I just thought that was very super dope. I'm sorry, I love the Picard series, so I love the parallels on this. So, but yeah. That was. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I think they do have a special relationship because I do think that they admire each other for the things that the other person doesn't have. So, like, Picard is extremely analytical, but he can't be fully analytical because he's a human being, and he has emotions, desires, his past, mortality, all as things to contend with that make him not be able to just focus on being an analytical mind and detached and cold all the time, right? As he kind of would want to be. And vice versa, Data admires, I don't think, he doesn't desire Picard's emotionality because Picard's not really emotional, but I think he does admire Picard's humanity and his decency. Right. And that's what he wants to learn how to mimic and to be.
And he achieved that reverence, even with Data. It's crazy.
But it's but I also think that they chose to focus on Data. But I would say that I think that for anyone under Picard's command, he had a love and a reverence for. Remember, when Tasha Yar showed up and he had a really hard time when they cloned her and she basically comes back as a Romulan commander, he's really thrown off because his natural love that he has for Tasha and the person that looks like her totally interferes with his ability at first to be able to react. I think that he just has that kind of as a part of him. I would also say that I just want to point out this other thing in the Star Trek universe, remember, where the last series is when the last episode of the TNG series is when he has to go backwards and forwards across time all the time. And a part of it is him doing all these strange things that his crew, his then new crew, right, when he first took command of the Enterprise, think are strange, right? And they're like, who the fuck is this guy? What is he doing or whatever? And then he calls them all together and he just goes, I know that what I'm doing is really strange, but what I'm asking everybody on this, I want to know that I believe and I know everyone in this room, and I know who you are even though you don't know who I am, and I'm asking you to trust me. Right? And then they end up trusting him. And I do think that the reverence that he feels, he also gives.
Yes.
And I think that they chose to center it around Data, but, I think if there was a series where Worf was in trouble and, he would show up for Worf. If it was...
I mean, he did in that series, he was a strategy.
Exactly. And all these different ways. I think that that's just a part of who he is as a character, right? And that's just his leadership quality. All of the Star Trek captains I love because they are all so different models for leadership, right? Yeah. And they show that there's not one way to be a historic and an important leader. And I think it's really important in this time, you referenced before of our obsession with social media and stuff and the way that things appear. And we think that things have to look like one thing, that leadership looks like a certain way, or activism looks like a certain thing, or love looks like a certain thing. And, one of the things I think that's so amazing about this series overall is that it shows that there's so many ways for people to lead and to show up, and so many different ways that people can be brilliant, and can be legends, in so many different ways.
For sure. And I mean, I think I've been watching a lot of Voyager lately, and I've really been appreciating a lot more the lengths that Janeway will go for her crew. She will scorch the universe just to save those 50 people on her crew.
150.
150. My bad. 150. I don't know how many they ended up with by the time they got home, but
it almost evened out. Like when you do the math, you almost, because they picked up crew members and they lost crew members.
So yeah, they got the Captain Savage's
they got some of
the Equinox.
Yeah, the Equinox crew. They lost some of hers. They got 7 of 9. So I think she probably had about as many as when she started with. But I really do think that, like, what I love about the Voyager series is that it is so much a women's series. Like the women in Voyager are incredible, right? Like all of the women are like are insane. Like the men, there's some really good ones and not so good ones, right? But all the women are fierce. Absolutely. You know, and that Voyager series, I think, you know, is a way that like shows how you can be a woman and you lead in a different way and you're just as everything, right? But that I told you were sleeping on that series. I told you B'Elanna Torres is amazing.
I watched it, and as it was on, like I was watching it on UPN when it was like actually in run.
UPN, half and half.
Yeah, right. I love UPN. And thank you, Netflix, for bringing me back on my UPN classics. I appreciate you for that. But yeah, no, I definitely loved it. But I will say it is the only series that that series had the weakest second officer. Chakotay was cool, but he wasn't better than Riker, wasn't better than Spock, wasn't better than Kira. Maybe who's the second officer from Enterprise? Is it T'Pol?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's not better than her. So yeah, I say that because I saw a meme and they were just like, what Star Trek shows don't you want? And then they had the Picard like title screen, but then they put Chakotay, and I was just like, yeah, you're right. I wouldn't want to see Chakotay.
Okay, I'm not gonna argue with
disagree.
That. I'm not gonna disagree, or maybe slightly disagree. I mean, I think though, if you have a strong woman character like Janeway, right? Like she's a very, you know, and especially when she gets her mind made up, she's a dog with a bone. Like you know, you cannot, when she's locked on something, you cannot get her to not do it, obsess about it. You know, like remember the Equinox episode, right? Oh, yeah. And she was like, we're gonna get that motherfucker and we're gonna chase him down. I don't care what it takes. And then Chakotay was like, we should do this or we should do that. And she was like, you know what? I have another officer in the brig. You want to join him? Like, you know what I mean? Again, like she was about that life. You know what I mean? Like, and so if you have a character like that, what type of man do you think that you could cast in a role?
I think Tuvok would have been a good second.
That's actually a good point.
Yeah.
That's actually, and he originally was her second officer, right? He was, you know.
Oh yeah, true that.
Remember before Chakotay came on, and she was like, "Well, Chakotay technically outranks you, so you know, push you down." No, you're right. Tuvok would have been a better.
Like he was a loyal friend. He followed her. He challenged her.
Yeah.
And not in a like whiny kind of way. He was just like. What was it? When it was B'Elanna Torres and Paris were like having too much fun in public.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't care, you know, put them away. And he was like, shall I flog them too? Like, okay, I get it, motherfucker. Damn. But you know, I loved all the Tuvok stuff. And you know, honestly, Black Vulcan, show up.
Well, and also what's great about what I love about a Tuvok character, right? Is the ability to be Black and analytical and nerdy and not emotional.
Yes.
Right. And we don't see many characters like that. Do you know what I mean? You don't see many characters where like,
they're not allowed to retain their strength while being nerdy.
Right. And being highly analytical and being like, you know, and not reacting. He just isn't provoked. You know, he's not provoked.
Yeah.
And we don't have enough Black characters and Black male characters and specifically that allow Black men to have a range of masculinity. Right? Sure. Yeah. Like where you get to be masculine, but it get to show up in a lot of different ways that aren't stereotypical. And so then people think that the only way to be Black and masculine is through these stereotypes. And I personally think that's why it causes so many problems. And I think this is so many ways why you have to have like, you know, men like us because of that, because like people don't know or don't have these role models for how to express their masculinity outside of these very confined ways. And
have you seen Doctor Who?
Damaging. No, I'm not a Doctor Who fan.
Oh, well, there's a character on Doctor Who that I think would have absolutely served this purpose if he were cast, you know, as like if Idris Elba had been cast as his character. He was the swashbuckling, hyper masculine ladies' man who also dated men and had a fluidity about his sexuality. But he had a fluidity about his sexuality, but he was still the coolest motherfucker on the planet. That brother was smooth. He just had this swagger about him, and he was just, you know, fly by the seat of his pants. And it was just like, he was really a cooler version of Han Solo with, you know, that had, you know, that just didn't want to be boxed in and that stuff. And the show didn't make a big deal out of it. Nobody was like, oh, wait, what are you doing? It's like, oh no, that's just how Captain Jack flies. It's what he does, you know. But and even though everybody hated the movie, the Han Solo movie, I do appreciate.
I love the Han Solo. If you are into Star Trek, like, listen, if you are white men into Star Trek, you don't like the Han Solo story. But if you are like generally like, I mean, like white man and not a Star Trek, I mean, not a Star Wars fan, you don't like Han Solo. Yeah. But if you are a Star Wars fan, you like the Han Solo movie. I don't know anyone who's a real Star Wars fan of any background that doesn't like the Han Solo movie. Period.
I thought it was dope, and I was ready for like the next one, and they were like, "Oh no, we're not doing that anymore."
Yeah,
and
because
it was Kenobi and did some other. They turned that into a show now.
Yeah, the Kenobi one. That's gonna be awesome. So this is a little off topic still because we've gone into the Star Wars universe. But listen, I personally think I had this argument, or I made this argument with Tourmaline the other day, on Twitter, because she's just gotten into like Star Wars and like discovered all this Star Wars. And so I've been telling her like, here are the like Ventrix, I think, you know, they're all these characters from Star Wars universe. So in any event, we got into this back and forth because I was like, okay, so I just have looked at everything from Star Wars recently again. And I honestly think that you can make an argument that Obi-Wan Kenobi is the greatest Jedi Knight of all time.
Ooh, you know what they're going to say.
What are they going to say?
They're going to talk about Yoda. That's pretty much what they're going to talk about. That's the one. This is a Jordan LeBron conversation at this point. But I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you a Yoda person?
No. I am definitely more of an Obi-Wan guy. And when I play, and this is kind of dumb, but when I play my Star Wars games, I always try to do whatever Obi-Wan would do. So I end up like the goodest version of the character. So the old. I don't know if you ever played this, but they had these games called the Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
On Xbox, and they had the good to bad meter, and I was always the goodest version because I always just said, "What would Obi-Wan do?" All right, I'm gonna do that. I don't know. Obi-Wan's the man.
So here's the reason why I make an Obi-Wan argument is that he beat Anakin in single combat.
True.
Right? Anakin was essentially dead if the Emperor hadn't. He was dead. He was burnt alive, you know, and all the other stuff. So he beat Anakin, right? He beat Darth Maul twice. He actually, if you look at the time, he essentially beat General Grievous that had killed all these Jedi Knights, like at least 25 or 30 Jedi Knights, again, in single. So he beat General Grievous and he beat Anakin Skywalker in the same day, essentially. Like if you go back and look at them.
Yeah.
So sure. Like, or day and a half, like it was a really short amount of time. And he killed Darth Maul twice. And he watched after Luke. And he allowed himself to be killed because he had figured out the secrets of how to stay in the living force afterwards. So he knew that he wouldn't be dead. But he did that because this is the only way to make sure that Luke doesn't go to the dark side. It's for me to show him who his father is.
And he also trolled Vader after he died. Let's just
and he trolled Vader after he died. And so, like, I don't think that without Luke staying who Luke was, that he would have been able the empire would have fallen,
Mhm.
and more. So that's one thing, that the empire would have fallen, and secondly, I think people are gonna die. But Yoda's amazing, but Yoda failed in some really big ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, and so Yoda is the master. He was living from 900 years, and he didn't see any of that shit coming.
And he was the most in touch with the Force, right?
This is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, look, see, that's what I love about my way too late movie reviews. We just talk about whatever. It's a conversation.
We talk about whatever. So yeah, that's I don't know. That's what I think. We need more. I mean, we need more.
Like Geordi. Geordi's I mean, he was the lead engineer, head engineer.
He's an engineer. Yeah, there's Geordi.
Yeah.
But but the problem is that Geordi really didn't get to be sexual.
Yeah, he was like branded, and this is the reason why I don't like certain shows produced by Paramount, or that come from Paramount, whatever. Sometimes they have this cast, and then they have this minority guy, and then the minority guy is the one that can't get a woman. Is the guy that nobody finds sexually attractive.
Oh, you're right. On so many Paramount shows, there
yes, they're the guy that's like, they took away the black swag. And I'm not saying that he gotta have a certain swag, but like, don't nobody want him. He can't. Jordy couldn't get a date. He was in love with a hologram, which was looked down upon in the series. I don't know why, but he just like, he was always like failing at love.
Correct.
And nobody really wanted him. And another Paramount series that really started this for me was Big Bang Theory. The one minority.
Oh yeah.
Nobody wanted him. He's the least likable in that group. Are you serious? When the little bowl cut Jewish guy got a girl and he can't get nothing? Come on now. So I don't know. I just it's if you look, I didn't really. The Good Place was kind of like that as well with Chidi, but anywho, I look at some of the CBS Paramount. I'm like, I know CBS Paramount's a little behind the times sometimes, but they just be doing shit and they don't realize they're doing it. So they'll have a black person there and be like, hey, I shouldn't do that. But that's just a whole nother conversation in TV
and
production.
How long it's taken them to like get a trans character, on that we now just in Discovery have Gray, and who premiered this week in Discovery for everybody out there. So there's that, but just how long it's taken them to have a trans character and, like trans love and that sort of thing is also, I think, a thing to mention. There are great things about the Star Trek franchise.
They were okay with exploring androgyny, but they didn't go full gender transition ever. No. But I'm sorry, there was one more thing. I know we're running out of time. We are running out of Imara's time right now.
What's the last thing?
This last thing, the one thing, another thing that took me out of it was the music.
Which music?
When they launched, they played, like, and what was coming out the jukebox and what they played when they launched. I'm just saying it's 2063. So what are the oldies to them? It's probably more trap music or EDM than stuff from the 60s and the 70s. I get it's all told through the lens of the time period, which is the 90s. But I was just like, well, it's 2063. What constitutes?
Well, first of all, like, I mean, one of the things, right, is that
I know it's silly.
It's not that silly. They were just cheap. They were kind of cheap because that wasn't even a real legit oldie. So okay, I would put it to you like this. I would say it is 2020, and people are still using Beethoven's music in commercials.
True.
You know what I mean? So like, this is a whole nother topic, but like, there's a lot of 90s music that is informed by like Baroque harpsichords. I know it sounds weird, but if you think about Bills, that dun-dun-dun-dun, that's actually a harpsichord. Like that chord is from like Baroque, like 1600. So you can make the argument that like, so, a couple 200 years now, whenever it's supposed to be, like, would someone still possibly be into rock music? I think that there's an argument for that, right?
For sure.
There's an argument for that. My problem is that they were too cheap to actually use the real music that it would be. And somebody paid someone to write that whack ass, dumbass tune that actually isn't real rock music that they wrote for that series because someone was too motherfucking cheap at Paramount to write a check to someone legit that you would actually, have as that music. So I could see that. But I think that your point is a really well taken one, that there's so many other types of things that you could have considered. Like, it would have been really cool actually to take mid 90s music, like a mid 90s song, like a song from 96, and put that in a jukebox. Right, because that would have also been relevant. Because like a couple hundred years from now, people could be listening to like certain things. But wherever it is, the reason why they probably didn't use anything is because they were motherfucking cheap, and they had somebody write that. I mean, the song is whack.
Yes,
the lyrics are whack. Everything about it is whack as fuck, and it's because they were too cheap to license real music.
Damn it, Paramount, you're fucking up.
It was that's one of the cheap things about that. There was no love in that one either. I guess between the Borg Queen and what's his name, but there was no like apparent love story, which is okay because like I kind of hate action movies and sci-fi movies that always have to have love in them because they think that's the way that to get women is to have a love story. But
they would have put Picard and Lily as a love thing. They would have done that if they had to shoehorn anything in. That was the relationship that they probably would have looked to for that. Just think.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good. And I think that it's good, as like to show men and women to be able to be colleagues, and to have these like intimate friendships or these intimate interactions, and they not always have to be sexual, because in real life, a lot of people get in confusing situations where they feel like men and women, if you feel intimate with like each other, that it has to be sexual. And a lot of times that can lead to really strange situations. So honestly, the show, as I talk about it, Lily and Picard, together, really close, sharing these intimate moments, but it not be sexual, is actually refreshing.
No, I definitely appreciate movies that don't feel like they have to shoehorn in a love story. But, we're running out of time. So
nobody asked any questions. This is so sad.
I know.
We just got to nerd out. It was just
pretty much. Yeah. But that's all right, because that's what I'm here for. Definitely here for talking some good Star Trek. But for all of you guys who have actually lasted this long and stayed with us, you probably are already Star Trek fans, or just fans of Imara Jones, or fans of me.
I think if you've
one person out there.
I think if you've lasted this long, you have to be a diehard Star Trek fan.
I
don't think there's anybody who tuned in maybe to look at me, and of course to look at you because it's your show, would have lasted an hour unless they're diehard Star Trek fans.
Most likely. Well, so then I'll frame my summary for the diehards. I believe this is the best next generation Star Trek movie that was put out. I love it. I think it's better than Generations. Obviously, it's better than Insurrection and Nemesis. This movie just showcases a lot of the character quirks, and they put everybody in. I loved having Barkley in the show. I wish we could have had Whoopi Goldberg in there somewhere. I don't know. Where'd she go? But, money.
This.
Money.
Because you put Whoopi Goldberg in a movie, you got to pay, that's cash.
Yeah, you're right. And she's a big name. But, either way, I love it. I love the movie. I watch it over and over again. And I think this is the movie that if you were trying to get somebody to watch any Star Trek movie before the new ones were made, before that 2009, 2010, this was the most action-packed, action-focused movie that you could probably get with.
Of the new generation, of the
next generation movies.
Of the next generation.
Yes,
movies.
I know the newer ones, the Kelvin universe ones, definitely a lot more action-packed and action-focused. But for the next generation movies, if you were a 90s Star Trek head, you were trying to get somebody interested, I think this was the one that would have done it.
True. The only other one that was this action-packed, though, overall would have been Wrath of Khan.
Yes.
From the original series.
And that is the hallowed, top movie. So I'm not even going to touch it.
No. That is whatever. So one last question. So Do you think that, all right, in the scale of like, I'm gonna do a new thing on your show. So just in a scale of it being like booable or homeable. That is to say, like on the scale of like, is this the type of movie that you think you could or you would watch with a boo? Or is this like a homie movie? Like you and your homies, whatever, just come over, bring some beer, watch. So on the scale of like booable to homeable, like on this scale, like, you know, would you watch this movie with a boo, or you want to watch this movie with your homies?
I obviously, I don't know. I would prefer to watch it with the homies, but what I would say is, I don't think she's listening this late into it, so I'm gonna just, it's all good. But what I would say is, if I had to, because couples exchange interests. I'm like, okay, so we're gonna watch a rom-com that I pick, and we're gonna watch a sci-fi that you pick.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to pick a Star Trek movie to watch, this would be one of two.
With your boo.
Yes. If she had to sit through a Star Trek movie at all, it's either this one or the very first Star Trek reboot in 2010, whatever. The first of the new ones. This one or that one. I think those are the two easiest ones to convert people over with, where they don't need as much knowledge to understand what's happening.
That's true. That's fair.
So
yeah. Okay, well that's good.
I like it. Booable or homeable. Okay, I can steal that, right? It's not.
Yeah, you can just say as long as you say, as Imara like said on my show, and then you can steal it. But you just give me credit. But yeah, no, I think that's right. Like if you have these, these interactions, like, yeah, no, I think it would be hard for me to date someone who wasn't into sci-fi. It would be really hard because I have sci-fi on all the time, and I am into sci-fi stuff like big time.
Well, but here's the thing, though. You can't get everything in a mate. I look, the girl that I'm talking to right now likes video games and anime.
That sounds like y'all are a match, though. That sounds like y'all are a match.
But I don't need the sci-fi with it. I'll enjoy my sci-fi, and as long as we can play video games and watch anime together, I'm good.
I didn't say that I wouldn't date somebody who wasn't.
But you would prefer to.
I said it would be hard for me to do it.
Okay.
Right, but maybe they would be really into it, or maybe they're into action movies, or maybe they're into like, documentaries. So like there would have to be some, but like I am heavily into sci-fi shit.
Well, there's so many great sci-fi stories that, there's something for everybody there,
Yeah.
There's something for everybody. And I converted my sister over to Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar BSG is an incredible sci-fi series.
Yes. Again, another incredible on that. And I think that's on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it.
It's on Prime, and I also think that it's still on Hulu, I think.
There you go. So you got
one last question. One last question. Excuse me. Who's your favorite BSG character? Who's your favorite BSG? Like,
gosh, I have to go with a stereotypical, not very deep answer. Everybody loves Saltai. Who doesn't love Saltai?
It's really true.
He's the XO, and he is tough as nails, and he's old as heck, but he's a mean son of a bitch. And I love him for it.
And he rides people, and he just calls it like it is, and
absolutely.
All that stuff.
But the most human person is the engineer, the mechanic guy that he lost his wife. Goodness grief! I'm sorry, I forget his name.
The engineer who lost his wife.
Yeah, he thought he was a Cylon at one time, or his wife ended up being one. The guy who had he had a baby with a girl, and then
you mean Gaius Baltar?
No. Okay, so the engineer, the mechanic.
Oh yes. I know who you're talking about.
And then his wife went crazy. The chief. He's the most human person on that whole show to me.
That's interesting, Chief Tyrrell.
Yes.
Yeah,
he's such a human character.
That's also a show with great It's actually gender-wise, it's super balanced. There are amazing women characters,
Yes.
and there are
Come on,
amazing Starbuck, but I mean, there are amazing women characters that are like all types of women, right?
Yes.
So you have like
Yes.
women warriors, and you have like, you know, I think personally, President Roslyn is an amazing woman character. The way in which like she's able to be powerful and a leader and a woman, but she's not a warrior at all. Like she doesn't fight, you know, she doesn't. But there's another thing that how she uses her woman to lead, and then you have women warriors, and you have all these different types of people, and you have a really strong range of male characters. Right, like that, and all of the men aren't one note, like Mr. Gata, you know, who you know, like like there are all these different expressions. There are all these different expressions of lots of different types of masculinities, and there are lots of expressions of different types of femininities. And I think it's actually one of the most balanced shows in that way. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so interesting.
For sure. And look, I'm happy to watch any show that brings back my girl Xena Warrior Princess. I'm sorry. I grew up on Xena Warrior Princess. So it was that and Spartacus. I was like, yep, I'm here for it. I follow actors.
Okay, so this is the thing. So I think I wasn't really into so Xena, I was okay. So I liked the show exists. I wasn't really a fan or into it, and I think I probably would have been more into it if it was an explicit, like in terms of like my whatever, if Gabrielle, the blonde chick, had actually been a dude, then I would have been into it.
Could have been.
I would have personally been. Yeah, and that would have been interesting for me.
But then they wouldn't have treaded into, you know, lesbian territory on that one. Exploring different.
The woman on woman love.
Yeah, they wouldn't have explored that if he was just some guy. Kind of like, you know, I'm sorry. Well, I'll go off.
It should have been interesting, though, if they had that person as a man and then had her also sleeping with women.
You know, it was a great show for 12-year-old Chris. It was the bomb. Who was watching the now racist Kevin Sorbo. He was probably already racist in Hercules, and then just graduating from Hercules to Xena Warrior.
Hercules was terrible. How did you even watch that? And like,
as a child, yeah,
you were a 12-year-old boy.
As a child who didn't have cable, I only had Able over the air. Whatever you ever get over the air, that's all I had. So Saturday mornings at like noon, after cartoons are done, they're playing Hercules and they're playing Xena Warrior Princess, and we were watching.
Right.
So, you know, it's the 90s kids without cable. They all love the fuck out of that shit. It's not highbrow at all. No, it's silly, but yeah.
Understood. You totally explained how you got into that. It's been fun.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on. I appreciate your time. I know you're busy, got a lot of things to do, but you know, I'm always here to nerd out on sci-fi stuff. So maybe we just have to do something. Maybe we have to have another one of these that's an official Trek talk instead of a movie review.
I'm happy to do that. I'm also anytime you want, happy to talk about Star Wars.
For sure.
I'm back deep in the Star Wars universe right now. I'm back deep, and it's because of the Mandalorian. You know, yeah, because of the Mandalorian.
Everybody loves that show.
You don't like it?
It's okay. I thought it was pretty good. I'm gonna wait until the full season is done so I can binge it. So I'm just not gonna.
So you didn't think season 1 was really good?
It was all right. It was pretty good. Like, look, they had great moments in it. Obviously, everybody loves Baby Yoda. I love Baby Yoda. And him using the Force was dope, good and bad, and how he just showed up everywhere. The character Mando was okay. I definitely enjoyed the Mandalorian. Like, you know, this is the way of the of that particular. I'm sorry, what do they call them? Well, just that particular tribe.
Yeah,
they're that isn't all of Mandalorians. That's just that how those guys do it. So, but yeah, it's pretty good. And look, I'm here for anything that gets Star Wars back up and going as a TV property. Because, you know, that's the one thing that Star Trek has always had over Star Wars is they just have much more lore and character development because it's a TV series.
Correct. Because you just have all the time and the runway to do that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I also think that, like, for me with Mando, in
Mhm.
sci-fi, and just again in like this idea of thinking about like masculinity and the way that it's portrayed, is I loved having a man who, it's just an interesting note. He's a man, but he doesn't trade on his sexual power or sexual status as a man. Like,
Mhm.
we've seen no relationships to him. He's very much devoted to, although there was that kind of chick thing, but he still
Oh.
is very devoted to this duty to this child and to what he's like literally like a ninja or warrior class. Like he's devoted, whatever task he's supposed to do, that's his relationship. That's what he does. And it's just an interesting thing because we could have seen women kind of desexualized. Like if women are warriors, a lot of times they are desexualized as people, right?
Mhm.
In order, because you can't have a woman who's sexual and that, because she'll of course always want to have sex with the man more than fulfill her mission, right? So
Mhm.
they'll usually take out any type of sexual reference to that. And it's very interesting to see this type of warrior and this type of taking out of his sexuality from a man character. Like,
Mhm.
he's not like a 007 who's like a part, he's like, yeah, doing fulfilling his mission, but, hitting it on the side or like, and that's a part of his character. It's not. His character is about whatever job he's doing, that's what he's doing. And you don't really
Absolutely.
see, again, it's this whole thing of like seeing different types of men. You don't really see action character like that. Like even Jason Bourne, I'm addicted to Jason Bourne movies. Like
What?
a Jason Bourne movie is on and I'm addicted. Like I'll sit up all night, like, and I've seen everyone
Even the second one?
I've seen them all 30 times, right?
Oh, wow.
Every single, I mean, I'm talking about Identity, Supremacy, and Ultimatum, those three, not the other trash movies afterwards. But I mean
Gotcha.
those three. Listen.
Mhm.
So anytime they're on, like I can, whatever I'm doing, they come on at like 1 o'clock in the morning on USA. I'm hooked. I'm gonna be up all night. And but even that, he had to like have this love interest, and they had to have sex, and they had to do this, and they had to do that.
Yeah.
And a part of us being into him is that he could love whatever. And
Mm.
and yeah, exactly. No, I
Now,
like he can
I
kick.
did like that he was in love with the secretary girl, Nikki. Like that
That
was
I
yes.
like
And
that.
if they would have played that up more
I like
of
that.
him finding his love after,
I like that.
they didn't need the foreign girl. They could have just had that, and that would have made it valuable to
It
me.
would have made it interesting because they would have shown her conflict.
Mhm.
Because okay, I really do have to go soon, but they didn't, because this is stuff I love to talk about and I never get to talk
Yeah.
about. I have to talk about all this other stuff, which I do is where my heart is and what I believe in and what I've crafted my project around. But I also do love sci-fi stuff, and I don't get to talk about it as much as I would want to. But on this particular thing, this whole thing with Nikki, in the first movie, we don't see any conflict. Like when they're like, issue the order to kill Jason Bourne, she's like, kill, like Jason Bourne. Like you don't see any conflict,
Mhm.
because, and so I think that they decided later on to have made them a love interest because we didn't get any of that. But you're right. If they had made her the love interest and then made her conflicted, like
Yes.
showing her conflict around, y'all are trying to kill my boo. Y'all are trying to kill the man that, like, I was like shacked up with. It would have made a much more interesting movie than to have her just kind of as the dutiful, like, she was like from the intelligence side of the operation, like an intelligence
Mhm.
agent. It would have been much more interesting than just having her like send out orders and shit.
What movie have you seen her in lately? She's one of those actors, like she's one of those people in Hollywood that just kind of disappeared. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think
She was in a lot of stuff for a little bit.
I mean, I'm sure there's always a story behind it, but
Yeah.
with Julia,
Hey, look,
was
get your
Julia,
money.
was Julia Stiles actually the best actress, or was she a name and a face that they thought young people could connect to at the time?
Probably that. The same as what's his name?
Yeah.
See, there you go.
What's his
Josh
name?
Hartnett. He was in everything for a while, and then
Who's Josh Hartnett?
Lucky Number 11, Pearl Harbor.
Oh, yeah.
Down.
Yeah. Because he's supposed to be,
He was in everything, and then he just poof. I know that was more voluntary, but Hollywood just gets those people sometimes. So, anywho, well, hey, thanks for coming on. Thank you, folks in the comments, for still being here with us because
people were actually having comments. You didn't tell me anything.
People are commenting even in this minute, coming in to say, "Hey, y'all, Julia Stiles still lives in New York." Shout out to Brooklyn Mike, my main man. But yeah, this was great, and we are definitely going to do this again. We are going to nerd out some more on some sci-fi. So
I'm here for it.
Everybody listening to this on podcast platforms, look out for a new episode from us. It's gonna come probably in a month or two. We'll figure something out.
A month or two, okay. And then also,
I don't know. You got a busy schedule.
No, you can put it's your podcast. I don't have anything to do with it. You put out your podcast whenever you want to. So I'm just going to tell people to listen to my podcast, Translash. It's not sci-fi, but we do have some sci-fi interviews in it. Like we interviewed Gray, who is playing in Star Trek Discovery, but it's also a podcast about just trans issues and what it's like to be trans in America right now from a lot of different perspectives. So check out Translash. Also, like Chris said, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yep. Now, what's your Instagram? What's the Translash Instagram? Where can they find it?
The Translash Instagram is Translash Media. That's a super easy way to figure out what's going on. And my own personal one is Imara _Jones _. But if you just type my first name in, IMARA, it comes up right on the gram. On the
For sure. All right, y'all. Well, until next time, we will holler at y'all and keep up the faith with the sci-fi because we're going to be back.
One of the reasons why I have to get off right now is because I need to go watch Fear the Walking Dead and I have to eat before it comes on.
All good. All right, y'all.
All right, bye. Thank you so much.
Yep.